Kyle Nobbe is the basketball coach at North Decatur High School. He played at Greensburg. He played basketball at Marion University. He's the freshman coach for 4 years at North Decatur. Led the Chargers to sectional crowns in 2005 and 2012. He's starting his 12th season as the varsity coach at North Decatur. Please welcome Kyle Nobbe. You're welcome.
I drew the short straw to be the last person to go. I know some have left, so hopefully I'll be able to give you some information about North Decatur and our program. I want to thank Ace and Coach Lovell. Not only a great opportunity to be with these guys and to be with you, but also I think it's important that any opportunity we can to talk about our kids is important. We try to do that. I know very fortunate in Greensburg, we have a weekly radio show. We get to talk about our team and our kids. I get to come down a couple times a year with Coach Raver and talk with him. Very, very proud of our program, very proud of the kind of kids that we have. We have everyone returning from our team. I see Dr. Wellage over there. I was in his office maybe a month ago getting my eyes checked out, and he asked me how we were going to be, and I think I told him, well, the good news is we have everybody back, but that's also the bad news, because we have a lot of kids fighting for a lot of minutes. We have 3 seniors this year and 7 juniors that are probably going to play full-time varsity. Last year, of those 3 seniors, 2 of them played varsity, played little minutes for us, but were still a big part of what we were trying to do. 6 of those 7 juniors this year played significant minutes for us. We started 5 sophomores last year, and I don't know if it was which coach made a comment about sophomores, if it was Coach Garrett or whoever it was. They're right. Sophomores are very, very, very tough sometimes to coach because they're not mature enough yet to understand what we're trying to do with them as a coach, whether it's on the floor or off the floor. But you can start to see that transformation in them where they're starting to grow from a teenager, which they still are, but to, more importantly, to young men, and been very fortunate to work with those kind of kids year in and year out at North Decatur. My 3 seniors this year are Eric Mormon and Austin Brown. Those are both returning lettermen for us. They're kids that understand their role, accept their role, and last year did a great job of fulfilling that role, and we're expecting those kind of things as well from them this year. Luke Perdue is going to give us some added size. He's maybe 6'3", 6'4", but he's about 250. So he's going to give us some beef on the interior, which we definitely need when we look at the schedule that we play. So those are our 3 seniors. Our juniors, I keep saying sophomores, I apologize. Our juniors, Dane Lecker is returning for us. He has started the last 2 years for us. 6'4", plays guard for us. And Dane probably takes a brunt from me quite often because, as Coach Lovell said, I'm entering my 12th year, and I think of any kid I've coached at North Decatur, he probably has the most talent of any kid I've coached. And I've coached some really good players. And my job, Coach Metz's job, is to get him to try to understand how good he really can be. And the most important thing is, and we talked to Dane a lot about this, is you got to be willing to work hard enough to be that kind of player. If he ever does, the sky's the limit for him. Last 2 years, he's had to play point guard for us. It's not his position. He's kind of had to play it by default. We really didn't have anybody else that was ready to step up and take that role. This year, we have some kids that can and will. I think Dane will benefit from that, being able to play in, I think, his natural position, which is on the wing. So we're looking for big things from Dane. Evan Wolpe returns for us. Evan's a coach's dream. He works his tail off, does anything you ask. Great kid, as all of them are, but an exceptional student. You know, I think in our junior class, think we had 6 kids at the end of the year that were tied for number 1 in the class. So, and Evan's kind of gullible sometimes. And I remember we were in the locker room in the spring after workout, and the kids were kind of talking about that. And I told Evan, I said, well, you know how that works, Walpy, how they determine who the valedictorian will be if you all tie. You're 6th, baby. It's a W. They go in alphabetical order. And he believed me for a 4.0 student. And if you know Evan at all, I mean, he was ferocious. He was so mad. But then I kind of had to let him in on it. But that's what kind of kid Evan is. He's a great kid. Unbelievable player for us last year. Really started to grow in his own. He played JV as a freshman. I think it was the best thing for him. I was fortunate enough to have a really good post player 2 years ago in John Hammersmith, and allowed Evan to grow and not to be put in a position that he was going to have to play varsity minutes at that age. Unfortunately, Dane had to do that. Andrew Hawker had to do that. Those were kids that weren't necessarily ready to play varsity as freshmen, but they had to by default a little bit. I'm really looking forward to see those kids benefit from what they had to learn when they weren't necessarily ready at that time to be playing varsity. And I was fortunate that Evan didn't have to. Had an outstanding year for us last year, Evan. He averaged a little over 10 points, just like Dane did for us. Evan averaged, I think, 8 rebounds for us. He's grown some. He's about 6'5", about 225 right now. And I was telling one of the coaches, I think Coach Dennis, that was hated to see our football team lose last weekend, but boy, it felt good knowing that some of those kids came out of the season healthy, and Evan's one of those kids. He is a unbelievable football player as well as a basketball player. So we're going to lean on Dane, and we're going to lean on Evan to give us that scoring punch and also that leadership. Another starter we had that's going to be a junior is Luke Badgley. Luke is a kid that hard-nosed, would do anything I ask him. He's trying. When he was a freshman, I met with him and his mom, and I said, you know, I love you and I hate you because you have been the hardest kid I've had to coach in just that 1 year. Just because he's bullheaded and trying to get through to him. Last year was kind of the same way. The last 7 or 8 games of the season, he started to, okay, I'm starting to figure this out a little bit. This summer, the maturation he has made as an individual, not just on the floor, but more importantly off the floor, has been just tremendous of what kind of young man he's growing into. And Luke's a leader for us, and I think that's a big thing. I told him this summer, you have to be a leader for us, and Luke has taken that upon himself and has taken that very serious. Luke is maybe 6'1". He'll play some forward for us, but as I said, he's very hard-nosed and does a lot of good things for us. Andrew Hawker started for us last year as a sophomore. He'll be a junior this year. Andrew is one of those kids. It's a confidence thing with him. We talked to him a lot about it. He's a good shooter. It's just a matter of putting it all together at the same time, night in and night out. And again, that goes back to him growing and him maturing as a player. And he's worked really, really hard. I know, I think Coach Guerra had Jeremy Cook played for you, right, Coach? Does an outstanding job with his Cook performance here in Batesville. And Dane goes to him and has worked out with him, and Andrew Hawker has, and have really seen the benefits of them being able to work with Jeremy, and he's done a great job with those kids. Andrew's a kid that's always played a wing because he's been able to shoot the ball. This year we're going to ask him to handle the ball a lot more, and more out of necessity, more out of trying to get Dane off the ball. So I think it's a role that he has accepted. He accepted it this summer, and I think that he's going to be a big key for us as well. Our fifth starter we had last year was also a sophomore. It's Donovan Meyer. Hard-nosed kid, undersized, 5'10" if he's lucky. You know, we kind of put a rule in for him this summer and told him, you either shoot a 3 or a layup. He likes these little floaters, and when you're 5'10", those don't go over too well, night in and night out. So Donovan's a kid who, of all of our kids, he understands. He's a smart kid. He's a very competitive kid. He understands what his role needs to be and what it's going to be. And we have a lot of kids that way. We have a lot of kids that played major minutes for us as freshmen and sophomore that may see their minutes shrink from that time. And that's a testament to the kids behind them and the kids in the same grade or maybe even above them that are pushing them and taking some time away from them, but it also means that we have a better team. Another junior to be that we have is Eric Holloway, played varsity for us last year. He's a kid going into the season as a sophomore. I thought if you told me 2 weeks into the regular season, once our game starts, that he'd be playing significant minutes for me, I'd have told you were crazy. But he's worked extremely hard. He's going to be a huge asset to our team. He can shoot it. He's got some quickness. We really like a lot of things Eric does for us on the floor on both ends. And our other sophomore that played some for us last year will be a huge part of what we do is Landon Kreitz. Landon's a kid. He's battled some things with some illnesses and sickness and things like that, and has learned to control those things. And he's a different kid. I think his dad's here tonight. I just talked to him at the football game about it the other night. His consistency and how hard he has worked this offseason completely transformed his body from committing to the weight room. And he's a kid that can, should, and will at some point run the point for us, and that all depends on him. And we tell him that, and that's important that he understands that. So that kind of rounds out our varsity lineup. I think we're going to have a very good JV team. Have a lot of young kids. We have some really good sophomores that are really going to push these kids that are in front of them, and that's always a great thing. And one thing I continue to tell our kids, and I've been able to tell them since I've had most of these kids playing JV or varsity as freshmen, a year older doesn't mean a year better. And I tell them that all the time. You have to work for what you're going to accomplish, and we feel that those kids have done that. I want to introduce my JV coach, Coach P.J. Metz. I know Coach Disbro talked about guys that he had on his staff. Coach Metz, P.J., he played for me. Outstanding kid, outstanding player for us. He's been our freshman coach the last couple of years. Is moving up, taking over our JV position. Absolutely excited for what he's going to bring our program. Brings that youth. And more importantly, I had a really good friend of mine told me last year, Coach Andy Allen, principal there at Batesville, was an AD and athletic director at North Decatur for a year, and I'm really good friends with Andy. And each year I'll give him some of our games and say, scout us and tell me what you think. And the first thing he said is, this does not look like a team that you have coached. And Coach Metz, that's one of the things we talked about this summer. I've gotten a little bit laxed, I would say, as far as the way we've kind of approached things, just trying to do things a little bit different. Coach Metz has said, these kids wouldn't make it through what we did in 2006, right, Coach Metz? What we did in practice and what we did for conditioning. So we're kind of trying to bring that back and let these kids know that you're going to have to earn this. You're going to have to play with toughness, and you're not freshmen, sophomores anymore. We're done with it's okay. You got next year, next game. We're still going to be confident with them, but we're also going to be tough with them because we think toughness needs to be a major part of our program. And unfortunately, that's on me that I feel like last year we took a step backwards in that department. Have an outstanding staff other than Coach Metz. Steve Stern from Batesville. I think coached some football at Milan at one time. He just got hired in at North Decatur. He teaches in the morning at South, teaches in the afternoon at North Decatur. Is on our football staff. He's going to be our freshman coach this year. Mark Moore and Mike Blavelt are my junior high coaches, do an outstanding job. And I tell Coach Moore every year, he's been with me every year I've been at North, that the best part of him being on our staff is that he's the superintendent of our county highway department. So when it rains, or snows, excuse me, my road usually gets cleaned off first. So that's always a positive thing. and I remind him of that every year. So very blessed to have a great staff. Our schedule has not changed. We've moved some games around here or there. Feel like just as a lot of these coaches talked about the ORVC and the EIAC, I know Jordan and Bob can attest to this. I think the Mid-Hoosier Conference is an unbelievable conference. We went through a stretch for 4 or 5 years where every year we had a representative in the state tournament, in the state final, I should say. And that speaks a lot about the kind of coaches that we have in that conference, the kind of programs that we have. And I'm looking forward to another great year in the Mid-Hoosier Conference. We play every team in EIAC, excluding Connorsville, and we play Coach Shoemate in a scrimmage. So we understand how that's a meat grinder. And we feel that our schedule prepares us for the sectional. We feel that we've had some success in the sectional the last few years where maybe our record may not have reflected what kind of team we were, because we feel like we play the kind of schedule that's going to prepare us to win a sectional. And we constantly remind our kids of that. So very excited for this year. Want to wish all the coaches good luck. Thanks, Ace, for having us, and hope to have this opportunity to do it again next year. Thank you.
Well done, Coach.